Hello everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another cross-stitching update video. In this video, my theme for the week is called catching up, and that is because the last couple weeks I have made lists of projects that I wanted to work on and I have not managed to get to all of those projects. And so I pulled projects that I didn't work on the last couple weeks, I put them on a list, and then I also added a couple other non-cross-stitch related things that I would like to get to. So first, I will go over my list just so that you can know the things that I want to hopefully get done this week. And so first I will talk about the cross-stitch projects. So last week I had Fables, which is by Medusa Dollmaker, charted by Gecko Rouge, on my list of projects to work on. I did not get to it, and so that is actually the first thing I'm going to work on this week, and I actually already pulled the project out, so it's right here, and I will show you that before I end this clip. So first I'm going to finish going through my list. So Fables, I want to work on. I also would like to work on Cozy Winter Booknook, which is artwork by Rose Kahn, charted by Pain Free Crafts, because that was on my lowest percentage video list, and I didn't get to it because I had other things that I ended up working on, and then I didn't have as much stitching time as I thought I would. So Cozy Winter Book Nook. And then also I would like to work on Rose Library, which is artwork by Ivy Dolomore and charted by Unconventional X Stitch, but it is retired, so it's no longer available. And then the last cross-stitch thing on my list is I would like to work on my baby sea turtle kit, which is from the company Ina. And so I had pronounced it, I think, Onya in my previous video, but they have said that it is I and then NEH is like the pronunciation, so Ina. And so I would like to work on that kit and hopefully make more progress because I am working on a video that is just dedicated to that kit. I unboxed the kit, but then I also would like to have actual stitching progress to show in that video so you can actually see the way that the kit stitches up, because obviously it's nice to know the materials in a kit, but it's nice to see how it will actually look stitched up and the process of stitching it. So I would like to work on my baby sea turtle kit. That is it for the actual like cross stitching. There's a couple other things I would like to do, which I want to pull out my sewing machine, and there's a couple things that I would like to get done sewing wise, which they are cross stitch related. And so I had finished a chart for my daughter that was a unicorn, and I wanted to make it into a pillow, and so I would like to get my sewing machine out so I can make that into a pillow. And then I also have another cross stitching piece that I think I want to finish off as a sewn wall hanging, and so I'm gonna try that. I am not going to record any of that because I am not a good sewer. That is not my strong area, and so I don't know what I'm doing. I will most likely be looking up tutorials online and just trying to figure it out. And yeah, because I have a couple things that I have sewn for cross stitch finishes, but I sewed them by hand, and so like my sewing machine abilities, very small. Very small. And so I would like to do that. And then I also would like to finish my crochet granny square scrap blanket. So I have almost all the squares made for the blanket. I just need to finish 2 more, and then I need to attach the final 2 rows of squares to the blanket and then do a border. And then I'm not even gonna say weave in the ends this week because that is going to be a long job of weaving in the ends. I just want the blanket like in one piece. That's what I care about right now, is I just want all the squares attached to each other. So that is what I would like to do. And then one last thing is cleaning up. So the area over here is like my crafting area. It has like, there's like one of those cube shelves of project bags. I have right now my granny square blanket. I laid out all the squares on the ground, so that is just on the ground over here, and so there's just a mess of things and I need to get them put away. I've also been looking at getting a shelf for over, hold on, we will move the camera. So I have a one-piece poster. There's a box over there, which you can see sometimes in my video, a box. That is my Swift. So I have one of the Swifts that you can like fully take apart, and so I just always take it apart, put it back in the box, and then just put the box anywhere. And so I have my Swift over there. I need to put that away. There is a table over here, which I would like to move and then put a bookshelf right along here. And the bookshelf would be for not just books, but also some project bags, because I have project bags everywhere. And I think a lot of us stitchers probably end up with that problem where there's projects everywhere. And so, yeah, I really need to just organize that area better, because this is kind of like my area. And then I have my Lowry here. So yeah, this is like the area of mine where if anyone goes there, I'm like, why are you in my corner? This is my corner. So yeah, I need to clean all of that up a lot. And there's also like board games over there. There are projects that I finished that are stacked up over there that need to be like, you know, sewn into something or framed. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff over there that I need to deal with, and I just keep putting it off because I'm like, I would rather be stitching. But I have to deal with it eventually, and I guess this week is the week. So anyways, the project I will be working on first is Fables. The version that I have is from Gecko Rouge, which is no longer available. And I will mention too that the background on mine is removed. So if you look at mine, you can kind of tell, hopefully, that there isn't like a solid edge. So like there's some light stitches, but it doesn't make like a nice square because the background has been removed, and so it won't be stitched. And I will be working, I think, on this side because I think I'm trying to bring this side down more like this side has been brought down more. So I think that's what I am doing. And I was originally working this one where I was like completely filling in an area because these light stitches were getting me all messed up. Like, I miscounted a lot. There's probably a lot of errors in this upper part because I would go to stitch and I was like, I think I put that in the wrong spot. I think that one's in the wrong spot. And then I would just leave them. Like, I don't go back and correct them. What I usually will do if I find out that there's like a stitch in the wrong spot is I'll go into Pattern Keeper and I'll like look at this block of stitching. So, you know, I'll take that one block of stitching and then I'll go through Pattern Keeper and then just make my stitching and Pattern Keeper match what that block looks like so far. And so that's what I do, is I will just fix it in Pattern Keeper to match what my stitching is. The colors might be wrong, but at least that way when I go back to stitch on that block, the rest of it will be right, if that makes sense. So like if I put one stitch in the wrong spot and I find out later, then I will mark that one that's wrong, like the stitch that I had previously done that's in the wrong spot. I'll mark that as done, but then I will go back and then the other one will be the right color. So it evens out. Anyways, I don't know if that made sense, but that is what I do. And I will be working on this chart and hopefully I will make decent progress on this. And then I'll be switching to Cozy Winter Booknook next. Welcome to Tuesday, and I have an update already, which I'm excited about because yesterday and today I've had a decent amount of crafting time, and I've also just felt very motivated. And so the first piece I was working on, Fables, I have already done 1,000 stitches into it. I did 500 stitches yesterday, which was Monday, and then 500 stitches today, which was Tuesday. So I am going to be switching this project out. I worked on filling in some of the owl over here, and then I also was working over on this side, and I noticed that you can kind of see the ferret head is coming into like shape right here. So I'm happy about that. I also did some light stitches on the side just because these light side stitches need to get done, and those are not going to be fun. So I did some of those last night, and yeah. So I'm ready to switch projects already. The colors on this are just not that exciting to work on long term. I am definitely a color person. I like a lot of colors. So I'm ready to switch projects. But first I was going to show you one other thing I got done. So I actually finished my 500 stitches on this piece pretty early in the day. And so I was like, I did 500 stitches. I'm going to move on to a different hobby or something, you know, because I have my list. So my list over here, I can cross off Fables because I worked on that already. And then I also wanted to work on sewing, and so I did, yay! So I pulled out my sewing machine and I found some fabric, and I decided that I was going to try and attempt to make a pillow, and I made a pillow. So I had previously finished a chart from this book here, which is Fantasy Cross Stitch. I had finished the unicorn, and this book is by Needlelot Designs. You can find her on Etsy, and you can find the book on Amazon. And I think they also have an ebook. So if you'd prefer like an ebook, and where's the unicorn? I finished this unicorn a couple months, no, not even a couple months ago. I started it in May, and then I finished it probably in June. Maybe. Anyways, it's this unicorn right here. It stitched up really quick, and my daughter knew that she wanted this unicorn. She picked this out. So I had actually like used post-it notes to mark a bunch of patterns that I liked, and yeah, she picked this one to do first. And we had found fabric that she really loved from my stash. It was this fabric here, which is Ursula's Domain by thesewingshop.ca, and we were like, let's make it a pillow because it's going to be like a good size. And so that is what I am doing. So here it is, the fabric I used on the back, and I'm not done yet, so I still need to sew up the hole at the top where we were stuffing it, but I'm not done stuffing it because I think I need more stuffing. So anyways, the fabric I used on the back was a fabric that I had just from like a dress, and I never wore it, and so I was like, I was going through stuff because we donated some stuff recently, and so I was going through and just seeing kind of like what I could possibly use for other things, and so I was like, I could use the fabric from this dress for something, and so we decided to use it for the pillow. And so originally I had thought about chopping off some of the fabric and kind of bringing it in closer to the unicorn, but I love this fabric so much that I was like, no, we're just going to make the pillow as big as I possibly can with the fabric I have. And my daughter already was like, this would go perfectly on like her computer chair, gaming chair, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I think that's what her plan is for it. And I just, like I said, I just need to sew up the top. And it was actually very simple, and my sewing machine cooperated because there was one time, the last time I went to use my sewing machine, I was having so many issues with the bobbin thread and it getting tangled up, and it was like a battle between me and the sewing machine, but it worked and I was able to sew straight-ish lines. I was happy with myself because sometimes that's the hardest part of sewing, is really like getting the straight lines. Actually, there's a lot of hard parts about sewing, let's be real. Like cutting out the fabric, when I was cutting out the fabric for the back, it was not going in straight lines. I don't have one of those rotary cutter things, so I'm just using scissors. Getting straight lines while cutting, and then obviously a large part of sewing is ironing, which I don't like ironing, but there's so much ironing actually involved in sewing. I feel like I could go on a rant about why is sewing called sewing when like 10% of it is sewing, but the majority of it is like cutting out your pattern piece, laying out the pattern pieces on your fabric, and then cutting out the fabric, and then ironing fabric, ironing this, ironing that, sew one seam, iron the seam. Not a lot of it is sewing, but anyways, I have a pillow, so I'm happy about that. While my sewing machine is out, I think I might also try and make some other things into like wall hangings, because I don't really want to buy frames for all of my pieces, just because frames they obviously cost more, they are heavier to actually hang up on walls because I rent, so I don't want to like be putting nails or anything into walls. So like everything that's hung up here is hung up with those picture frame, like the command hook things. So I was thinking about doing like some like fabric ones with some ties or something at the top, and then I could just put up hooks, like command hooks, and then hang things like that. That's what I'm thinking. And so I am going to attempt to try some smaller pieces, but I was actually thinking about turning Autumn Harmony into some sort of a wall hanging. So I'm going to do smaller pieces first before I try and do something that's bigger. But yeah, the other thing too is like with frames, I don't really like glass. So like when I frame things, I always take the glass out, and so it seems kind of like a waste when a lot of the times if you buy a frame, it has the glass with it, unless you go to like Michael's and get it professionally done. But I also don't want to get it done at like Michael's. And you also have the fact of a large project, a large frame is going to be very heavy to hang up. Plus for storing, so like once you have something framed, it's going to be harder to store, whereas if something is a fabric like wall hanging, you can easily roll it up and store it flat or rolled up, or you could just hang it up in a closet. Like, it's a lot smaller and compact in smaller spaces. So that's my reasoning. That's my thinking. Anyways, it's really hot in here, if you can't tell. So yeah, I need to mention my next cross stitch project. So I'm done working on Fables. I am going to be working on Cozy Winter Booknook. I feel like I haven't worked on this piece in a little while, even though it's probably only been like 2 or 3 weeks, but it feels like it's been a while. And this one is artwork by Rose Kahn, charted by Pain Free Crafts. Yes. And I'm trying to decide where to work on this piece. So I have worked in this top corner. The last time I was working on this artwork over the fireplace that has like a dragon, which is very fun, but it's full of confetti. I might work in this area, but maybe work on the frame instead of the actual piece of artwork. But then there's also the clock and the window, and I have worked down at the bottom with the cat and some books. So I don't know exactly where I'm going to work. I might just ask my daughter later and then she can pick, because I don't know, she likes to make decisions. I don't, so she can do that for me. And this is on a 25 count 2/1 half cross. I will probably try and do 1,000 stitches on this piece before I switch to my next piece, but we will see if that happens. But I don't have any plans, I think, tomorrow either, so I didn't do anything today. I got groceries, but I did grocery pickup, so I didn't actually have to go into the store, and I don't have to do anything tomorrow. So my plan is just to try and do like 500 stitches on this piece tomorrow, and then I also want to try doing a little bit more sewing. So I will be back once I have done some more stitching. So it is now Friday, and so I am here to update you on what I did Thursday and on Wednesday, which I was working on Cozy Winter Booknook, and I did about 1,000 stitches, a little over 1,000 stitches on it, and I am ready to switch projects and start working on Rose Library, so I'm going to update you on what I got done. I was also going to show you my little checklist that I made down here. So I worked on Fables, I've worked on Cozy Winter Booknook, so now I'm going to do Rose Library. I also worked on sewing, which I have already showed a little bit of my sewing, and then I have worked on the scrap blanket, but I'm not done yet, so that's why I haven't checked it off. So I'm making progress on the checklist, but yeah, I'm going to show you Cozy Winter Booknook. So I decided to start working on filling in some of the frame, and so I was working on the frame. I also did some of the green around the frame, and then I yesterday was like, I should work a little bit more in this picture because it's got a lot of confetti, so that's not an area that I'm really drawn to work on because confetti isn't my favorite. But I did do some of the lighter stitches in this area and have just started trying to do more filling in, and I'm so happy with the way that this is turning out. This piece is still just one of my like top favorite pieces. The only thing is that because it's so big, the percentage on this project barely went up. I didn't write it down, but like 1,000 stitches isn't going to get it up very high. I think it takes about 5,000 stitches to move this project up 1%. So yeah, it's not going to go up very high very fast. I was thinking, and I know this project, I'm still under 7% on this project, and I would like to get it to 10% by the end of the year, but I don't know if that will happen because that would be like, you know, 15,000 stitches or something crazy, and the year is like quickly coming to an end. Anyways, the next project I'm going to work on is Rose Library, which is artwork by Ivy Dollamore and charted by Unconventional X Stitch, and I have it already pulled out. So here is Rose Library, and this is another piece that I am stitching on a 25 count 2/1 half cross. And previously I had been working on the window, but I think this time I'm going to go back to filling in this empty section here because I have worked on like the full left side of the piece, and so I would like to fill in this like gap. And I think what I did is this gap is here because I had wanted to get down to the flowers, and so I just kind of like stitched a line down to get to the flowers. So yeah, I'm gonna fill in this gap and hopefully make some good progress on this piece. And I can't decide because I technically have baby sea turtle on my list of things that I would like to get done this week, and so I can't decide how many days to give Rose Library. So it's already Friday, so I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I might just give it 2 days and then work on baby sea turtle on Sunday, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Another thing that I was thinking about doing is pulling baby sea turtle out now and then doing just like a 30-minute chunk on baby sea turtle every day. So like just set a timer for like 30 minutes, do 30 minutes on baby sea turtle each day, and then that way I can also work on Rose Library for the 3 days. So that might be what I do. So if I do that, I'll take a picture of baby sea turtle before I start working on it so that I can show you the progress that I make on it. But I'm not going to go get it right now because it's put away and I wasn't thinking before I started filming apparently. So we will see when I come back. I most likely won't come back to do an update until Monday, which is when I will be starting my next video, which I still don't even have a theme yet for my next week's video. So I need to think of my theme for next week's video and yeah, get to stitching. So I'll see you all on Monday morning with my final update. And welcome to the end of the video. It is now Monday, and so I worked on Rose Library 2 days. I ended up taking Saturday off from stitching. I did not do any stitching Saturday. Instead, I was like playing games, doing some other stuff, having a good old time. And so I worked on it 2 days and I did a little over 1,000 stitches. So here is Rose Library now. And I was really just focusing on trying to fill in this section so that it's not, you know, empty anymore. So I was working on the flask, which had a lot of confetti stitches. And then I also did this shelf here, which was mostly one color. So that was really nice to get like one easy color to fill in. And then there are a couple books that still need to be filled in over here. But yeah, the shelf is getting filled in, which means that there's not like that huge gap that there was for a while. So this side is starting to look nicely filled in. I love the colors in this piece. Overall, I just love working on it so much. And so yeah, that was my progress on Rose Library, and I ended up not working on baby sea turtle. So I actually decided right after I had filmed my last clip that I would not work on the baby sea turtle chart yet, and so I planned out the rest of August. And so my plan for August is next week, or this week starting today, I will be working on some pieces that I haven't worked on yet this year. I'm actually going to pull some of my small projects off of my shelf and work a little bit on those, and I think one of those projects that I pull off of my shelf will be my new daily stitching piece starting in September. And so I wanted to pull off the smalls from my shelf and, you know, kind of see which one I for sure want to work on. And then at the end of August, I am going to do a week of working on things that are closer to a finish or like smaller pieces, which will include baby sea turtle. So I will work on baby sea turtle at the end of August with a few other smaller pieces, like that little bookshop piece that I had started in May. And so that's my plan, is next week or starting today, I will be working on some things I haven't worked on yet this year, smaller pieces, and then at the end of the month, I will be doing working on smalls that are close to a finish. So that's what's coming up. Also, I was going to mention, so I had made a checklist at the beginning of the week. So here it is. I worked on Fables, Cozy Winter Booknook, Rose Library, and then I did not work on baby sea turtle. I did work on my scrap blanket, which I will show in a minute, and I also had pulled out my sewing machine, which I had already shown you, the one pillow, which I do not have it to show right now because, you know, my daughter has it. And then cleaning up, I did do a little bit of cleaning up because the main thing that needed to be cleaned up over there was the fact that I had yarn and my scrap blanket laid out over there, and so now that is picked up because the blanket is in one piece right now. So I'll try and show it. I might have to like insert a picture of me holding it up just to show. It's not as big as I was originally planning on making it, but I was just like, I'm tired of making these granny squares. So here is the blanket. It's pretty big. So it's more of like a throw size blanket and not like a full, you know, size blanket. But like I said, I will try and get a picture of it, of me holding it up where you can actually see like the whole thing. And so it is all joined together. I use the join as you go method, but I also want to do a border around the edge. And I think I might just do more granny stitch around the edge in my joining color, which was this. And I might just do a couple more rows of granny square around the edge, and then maybe one round of like a double crochet, or try and do like a little ruffle around the edge. I don't know yet. I have not decided, but I'm just happy to have it in one piece. That was my main goal, is get it in one piece so that I don't have like squares everywhere, and so I don't have it laying on the ground anymore. The downside is I did not weave in ends yet, so there are still a lot of ends to weave in, and so I will have to start working on that. But I can work on that now that it's like all put together, like while I'm watching shows at night, or if I have like, you know, some downtime, it would be easy to just pull this out, weave in a few ends, and go about it that way. Plus, we're at like, you know, the middle of August. We are getting into fall, and so I could even like have this on my lap once we start getting into cold weather, and it could be keeping me warm while I weave in ends. So yeah, I'm just happy to have this put together. And now I can move on because I would like to start a different crochet blanket, which the one I was looking at, I can't remember what it was called. It was one, and you do like, it has like blocks. If I can find a picture on Ravelry, I'll insert the picture of it. But I had bought a bunch of yarn when Joann's was going out of business, and there was some yarns that I really wanted to use for a blanket, and so I would like to be able to start that now that we're getting into fall. I really enjoy working on crochet blankets, especially the ones where like, I've made one before where like every round of the blanket you're doing something different, and so it keeps you engaged because you're doing like a popcorn round, and then you're doing, you know, something else on the next round, and so it keeps you engaged and not being like bored, because like if you're doing just like granny squares, that gets boring. It's just one thing repeatedly over and over again. Anyways, so that was the scrap blanket. And then for sewing, I did do one more project. So I had done the unicorn pillow, which I had already showed. And then I also finished off this piece here, which was King of Hearts and Stitches. And so I just made it into like a little wall hanging. I sewed the same purple floral fabric onto the back and then added a loop at the top and finished it off that way. And I also found a video, I can't remember who it was by. I cannot remember who anything is by. It might have been by like Caterpillar Cross Stitch. I will insert like a picture of the video if I can find it. And it was showing how to turn cross stitch pieces into wall hangings using like a wooden dowel at the top. And so I think I might try that for some of my larger pieces like Autumn Harmony, and I had also finished Death by Cross Stitch a really long time ago. And for the tutorial for that, it looks really simple. So you sew up the two sides. You get like I can't remember what they used for like a stuffing just to make it like stiffer inside when you go to hang it. And then at the top you fold your cross stitch fabric over the top, but you don't sew the sides down. So you sew like the bottom of the piece down, and so it leaves an opening for you to slide a wooden dowel through the top and hang it. And then on the bottom they did a similar thing where they folded the bottom over, and then they put I can't remember what it was. It was something that was weighted to make it so that the bottom would hang down and like give it weight to it to pull down so that the fabric isn't like kind of bunching up. So that looked really simple, and so I think I'm going to do that eventually for Autumn Harmony. The biggest thing is just getting a wooden dowel that's like, I don't know, 30 inches. I need to measure how wide she is, but yeah, I was thinking about trying that for some of my larger pieces and getting some of them hung up on the wall like over there, because that wall space over there is pretty empty, and so I need to get that filled in. That is all though for this video. I was gonna talk about books, but I feel like I have already been talking for a while in this video because I talked quite a bit, I think, when I was doing my sewing talk with the pillow earlier. And so I'll talk about books in my next video, most likely. So thank you everyone for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!